Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to I Care About You, the podcast where we navigate life's challenges with compassion and care and generosity to ourselves. I'm Juliana J, and today we're talking about fear, but a specific kind of fear, not the fear of real danger like natural disasters or things of that nature, but the everyday fear that can shape our choices, limit our potential, and keep us in places we no longer want to be. I've always resonated with the phrase, fear is what keeps you here. I first heard it in a song back in the, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and it stuck with me. I even had a journal with the words on the cover. But despite how much I loved the phrase and I really felt it was powerful, I didn't recognize how often I was allowing my own fear to dictate my life, the choices I made, and the things I decided not to do simply because of fear that was not rooted in anything other than my own imagination and what I perceived might happen or what people might do. Judgment was a really big one of those, fear of being judged. So, what purpose does everyday fear serve? Why do we let it control our decisions? And most importantly, what can we do about it and how can we recognize it? So let's dive in. I know probably some of you can really resonate with this in that fear, these little tiny things, it could even be, I remember I was like so fearful to do really small things like advocate for myself when I went out to dinner about what I actually wanted. Like, could I have no onions on that? Or things like that. Even getting up from the table to get more sugar for tea. I would stop myself with these little micro fears and the bigger everyday fears of I'll never get a better job than the one I have now. And I really let them dictate my life. So from these little micro fears to big, large fears to irrational and rational fears. What is the nature of everyday fear? Fear is a learned response. Even if you don't consciously believe in the fears of your parents, your siblings, your friends, maybe a community or a group you're involved with, or even your old classmates, those fears that those folks had, you might still carry them around with you, even though you consciously don't really believe in them. They're running in the back of your mind without you knowing. The mind's primary job is to keep you safe. But it often applies this cautionary response to situations where no danger exists or it is extremely minimal, meaning it's unlikely I was going to get run over by a truck when I got up to get more sugar. But your mind doesn't make that distinction. It's just using this fear response to keep you safe. It's not trying to decide actively if everything you're doing is safe or not safe. It's just applying it where you've allowed it to seep into your subconscious. For example, I have this fear of roller coasters. It's not rational. I know millions of people ride them safely every day, and it can be a lot of fun. But I learned this fear when I was a child when I heard a story of someone falling off a roller coaster. The story, exaggerated and retold over and over again, became ingrained in my mind as a universal truth. Roller coasters are dangerous. I never questioned it. I just avoided the roller coasters. And in fact, if I was somewhere where there were roller coasters and people were going to ride them, I started to get sweaty and stressed out and really, really fearful of them going on the roller coaster, fearful if I went on the roller coaster, I didn't enjoy it at all. I white knuckled it all the way through the ride and not in a good way. And over time, I just stopped going on the roller coasters and I would just wait for people to go in a 2 hour line and ride the roller coaster, and I would just sit there by myself. So I let that unexamined fear control my choices. As a result, I missed out on fun experiences. I spent time alone while I was with friends who were making memories, and I let an old, unexamined fear control my choices for the day. How many of us do the same thing, but in different areas of our lives? How does it hold us back in these different parts of our lives. You'll be surprised at how fear seeps into so much of what you do. So many of us let untested fears dictate our actions. Like, I can't change careers. What if there's nothing better out there? What if I have to start over? What if nobody wants me? What if I can't get a job? I can't leave this relationship. What if I never find love again? Or this is the best thing I'm ever going to get or I'm worthy of, which is a whole nother topic, being worthy. And one a lot of people have, I can't travel. It's too expensive. It's too risky. I don't know the customs, the culture, the language, wherever I'm going. And I worry that people are going to judge me negatively. Or I can't drive in the city. I'll get in an accident. I don't know how to do that. I can't parallel park. I don't know how to parallel park. So much more. As I said, little tiny things from I can't go out to dinner and advocate for myself for a meal, or I can't ask a question at the library or ask for directions. What is keeping us from doing those things? And another fear-based thing that happens a lot is I can't step out of my comfort zone. I can't do something new, even though I want to know how to do something, learn to play piano, learn guitar. I can't do that because I don't know what I'm doing and people will judge me and I won't be perfect. So fear can just so readily seep into your life and become this governing agent working behind the scenes all the time, and you might not even notice it. There's also things like talking during meetings, or if you have a good idea, expressing it, or you have something to contribute to a conversation, but you don't because you're afraid of what people will say or being judged or having people think it's stupid. There's a lot of things that we do daily that are really controlled by these irrational, untested fears. These fears keep us playing it safe. It keeps us locked in jobs, relationships, and lifestyles that no longer serve us or that we never even wanted in the first place. Over time, we start to feel hopeless because we believe change is impossible. But what if these fears are just echoes of past experiences? What if they're based on stories we once heard but never challenged, which is so true for so many of the governing beliefs that we have in our life? We learn them sometime during childhood. They're echoes of past experiences, and we've never challenged them. We just took them as truths, and we never thought, is it worth applying to my life now, or is that something I can let go of? Or maybe that was even, I had a lot of fears from childhood that were really my child brain misinterpreting exactly what was happening because I couldn't interpret it or understand it or misinterpreted it. My body labeled it as, my mind labeled it as a fear. And I never questioned it. I just went through life going, oh, yes, you can't do that because this might happen. And sometimes our fears are based in funny things our parents tell us, like, you can't go barefoot outside because you'll step on a nail and you have to go to the hospital and get a shot. We neglect the fact as adults that we could look down and see those nails on the ground and avoid them, pick them up, throw them away. We just think, oh, you can't go outside without your shoes on. And we leave it at that. We never challenge it. We never look at it. We have a lot of those things in our lives that are governing us, that are really just things we learned long, long ago and never challenged or addressed or even reflected on if they're helping us or not. What if these fears are based on strange societal beliefs and metaphors that do not serve us? I remember having a job that was one of those golden handcuff jobs, put that in quotes because it's a metaphor. People were unhappy at my work, but stayed because they believed the metaphor of the golden handcuffs. They believed that you have to stay at a job like that because you won't get a job anywhere else with better or the same benefits and pay. Even though, let me tell you, the pay was not that good. But we were also conditioned that this is the best we can get because of that golden handcuff belief slash metaphor, that we never questioned all the other parts of that job that were challenging and not beneficial to us, like toxic work environment. Actually, it was low pay, of having to pay for parking at our own facility, which was a lot of money, and all these other things that the company was pitching as something fantastic, a benefit that was fantastic, but really it wasn't so great. Maybe in the day it was, but not now. So, what if those old beliefs, societal beliefs, are just ways of keeping us in places we don't want to be because someone who came before us was afraid? Another thing we think is true is you try something different, you will fail. If you try to be an entrepreneur, you will fail. So you better just look for a good company and hunker down and stay there for the long haul until you retire. We have all of these societal fears around these things like jobs, relationships, family, children, houses, what we should own, what we should have, our possessions, how we should be in the world, what's expected of us depending on how we present, and what we need to do or not do. A lot of the fear is associated with times in our lives, such as when we get to be older, we feel like, oh, we can't take up something new because we're old now, and that would be embarrassing to be a 50-something-year-old person going back to college, even though that is something I would really want to do with my life. We let those fears of what other people think stop us and hold us back. So, what can we do about this? What can we do about these irrational or micro fears? Working through fear takes courage, but it's possible. Here are a few things you can do to recognize your fear and do something about it. Now, the first thing is recognizing the fear. That's the first step. It's awareness. When fear arises, pause and examine it. Is this fear rational, or is it an overprotective response from my mind? Is this fear so important it will stop me from doing something, or can I let go of it? This was huge for me. I had to let go of other people judging me. I would have never had this podcast or done any of the things that I did. Putting a book out there is a really scary thing because people look at it and judge it. And I would have never done that in the past because I let the fear of people judging me take over my life in such a way that I didn't do a lot of things I really wanted to do in life. When you think, for example, say you want to speak up during this work meeting, but you have fear about speaking up. You can pause and ask yourself, where is this fear coming from? Maybe you were scolded for talking in class as a child, but the rule doesn't apply in your adult life. That's an example of one of those things you've carried along with you. Challenge the fear with logic and self-reflection. So ask yourself, where's the fear coming from? Can you trace it back to something? You don't have to necessarily, but oftentimes we can. And especially if you were a child who grew up in a nonconformist family or you were a nonconformist yourself, you got a lot of negative feedback from teachers and things throughout your lifetime about you're talking too much, you're disruptive, sit down. It's understandable that teachers need to have control of the classroom in order to do their jobs, and students need to behave. But if that was a constant threat in your life and people were just getting mad at you over and over again, but no one offered you solutions or ways to be more in tune with what the rest of the class needed at the time, you might have developed a lot of fears about speaking out, getting up if you have to go get something, or all types of things can play into your life because in childhood, we had experiences that told us talking during a meeting or a lesson is not acceptable. The next one is a really big one. And I talk about this so frequently in all the other podcasts that I do. It comes up all the time. It just came up last night in the journaling group. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You can't grow without some discomfort. You can't grow without some discomfort. The best opportunities, your dreams, your goals, exist outside of your comfort zone. Challenge yourself to take the small risks and break free of old fears. Start small and build up a feeling of being comfortable stepping out of your comfort zone. I did a whole year of being outside of my comfort zone, and I didn't do a lot of the really amazing stuff some people do when they get out of their comfort zone. Like I didn't pose nude for an art class or go bungee jumping or things like that. I mostly worked with it in small ways, which got, that's why I started the podcast. That's how I got the book deal. That's how I started all the groups that I have. And that's how I went back to school and got my transformational coaching certificate and my meditation teacher training. All those things I would have never done if I hadn't decided I was going to step out of my comfort zone. I'm about to take a big 2-year class now, again on meditation. And I feel a little bit of those fears coming back up. You're going to have to talk, you're going to have opinions. You're going to have to offer your beliefs on certain things or your assumptions or your rationale for certain things in class because it is expected that you participate. You're going to have to work with partners on meditation practices that I might feel a little bit insecure about. And I'm going to have to do that in front of a total stranger or somebody who I don't know very well. And I can feel all those things bubbling to the surface as the class is about to start. And I've been really kind of working with that, challenging those old fears. Everyone else in this class is a newbie too. So finding a rationale for it, challenging the old fears and breaking free and stepping out of the comfort zone into that space of discomfort and being able to move forward in that. Knowing that I'll make mistakes. Another thing that you do when you step out of the comfort zone is the second you make a mistake, which you will because it's out of your comfort zone and you don't know the rules, you step out of your comfort zone, you make a mistake, and then you go right back into your comfort zone because you were like, well, that didn't work out. But that's not what is most productive for you. You can step out of your comfort zone, you'll make mistakes, realize that and reflect on those mistakes. How could you have done it differently? Why did that mistake happen? What is something you could do to either rectify that mistake or work through it and keep going? It gets easier and easier as you go along. Also, review and reflect. At the end of each day, journal about the fears that you faced. This is very similar to the emotion journal that I talked about. I think it was last week's podcast. Journal about the emotions that come up when you are facing a fear. Where did this fear come from? Does it still serve me? Is it keeping me from something I truly want? What other emotions come up when fear presents itself? A lot of fear is sort of born out of our anxieties about the unknown, anxieties about when things didn't go right in the past, anxieties about just thinking it's not going to go well in general. It's just a fear that maybe is not based in reality at all. So taking some time to reflect on it every day is important, and it will lead you to looking at some commonalities in your fear. Like, what do you do when fear pops up so that you can recognize it easily? And what are the things that really bring about the fear? Writing things down helps to bring clarity, and it allows you to see patterns in the fears. I talk about this all the time in the journaling group. It's a monthly journaling group. I'll put the link in the description, but it's so wonderful. It's a very safe space. We talk about all kinds of things that are challenging us. We have writing prompts. We work through journals. I'm about to start a 10-month Rewrite Your Life course, and that'll go up pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that. And that is really an opportunity to go in depth, look at your beliefs that shape you, situations that happen to you, your own self-talk or negative self-talk, your feelings of worth, and to retell your story in a way that makes more sense for you, that is more nurturing for you, that allows you to find some self-love, that allows you to find self-worth, that allows you to process these things that you've been carrying around with you. So that's something to look forward to, and I'll keep you posted on when it goes live. It's still being organized, but it's almost there. So writing, journaling, even talking out loud about it as you're driving home from work or you have a moment to yourself, you're in the shower, whatever, can really help you come to terms with what exactly is happening. Like I've said many times, there's so many times something happened to me in my day-to-day life, and I just handled it a certain way because that's what I always do. But when I started journaling about it, I realized it had triggered a lot of emotions in me that I didn't express at the time, that I just stuffed down to get through the thing. But then when I was reflecting on it later on, all this stuff came up about how actually upsetting it was, or thrilling it was, or great it was, or horrible it was, or what beliefs, negative beliefs, and negative self-talk about myself did it bring up. And a lot of times that's when we stifle stuff down. Something's happening to us. Fear kicks in, the irrational fear. And then we feel like, oh, we have to stuff that down and do what the person wants so that we can get out of the situation. That's the response that we've created. And we don't really realize what we've stuffed down unless we take time to reflect on it. And we can't shift it until we reflect on it and figure out exactly what's happening. One thing that's really important with this practice of letting go of irrational fears and mini fears is to practice forgiveness and letting go. I know you probably hear about letting go a lot. I talk about it a lot too. And it seems like such a hard process. And with some things, it really is. Some things I truly believe will be a lifelong practice for me of letting it go because it'll keep coming back up. I've let the situation so define who I am and everything that I do that the unraveling of that will probably take the rest of my life to do. And that's perfectly okay. It's a process. But every time I can let go of a little bit more, I can let go of a little bit more, I can let go of a little bit more. And I practice forgiveness with myself. Oftentimes, when you're doing this work or any work on yourself, you view your life with hindsight, and that hindsight will manifest sometimes into negative self-talk and negative self-beliefs or feelings of worthlessness or being unloved, simply because that is what we do. And finding some forgiveness for yourself there, not using hindsight, just looking at what's happened in your life and what's created the fears and how you were doing the best you could at the time. I mean, when you're 5, you don't know what you know as a grown up. And you can give yourself some grace. I was 5. I didn't really know what was actually happening. I realize now that's an irrational fear. I didn't look at it throughout my life until now, but I didn't know. I was doing the best I could with what I had. Don't look at it in hindsight and use it as a way to beat yourself up. That's not what you need to do here. Realize that fear often lingers because we hold on to past experiences. One way to release this is with the Ho'oponopono practice. It's a Hawaiian practice of forgiveness and healing. It's a simple and powerful practice, and it goes like this. Saying it to yourself, I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Over and over and over again. I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. There's different variations of it. You can find what works for you. I find this really simple one is easy to remember. I used to do this on my way to work. I had a 5-minute drive, 8-minute drive, and I would do it the whole time I was driving to work. And there were so many times I'd be hysterically crying while I was doing it, just because the release of telling yourself I'm sorry, which is really, really powerful. I think that's going to be next week's podcast, is about the release of I'm sorry, to be able to say I'm sorry to yourself and to ask for forgiveness and to be thankful for the lessons that you've learned and who you are as a person and to love yourself are so important in positive beliefs about self and life and moving forward. So try it as a daily meditation. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and repeat these words, imagining the people who contributed to your fear and saying it for them, imagining people who might have been affected by your fear and saying it to them, and then include yourself and say it to yourself. Over time, this practice can help you release the energy holding you back. It's just a very simple practice. You can literally do it anywhere, at any time, silently to yourself or out loud, and think of all the people who are doing the best they could in the moment, trying to help you, and that you can let that go now. You can let it go. And for yourself too. Have some self-compassion. It's okay to make mistakes. That's what life's about. As I've said many times, there is no perfect. There's lots of these times in life where we have to forgive ourselves. You're not alone there. So in closing, fear is what keeps you here, but only if you let it. You have the power to question, to challenge, to rewrite the fears that limit you. I believe in you. I hope today's episode helps you take even one small step to living more fearlessly. Little steps at a time give you that space in life where everything opens up as a possibility when you let go of fear. All the things you wish, hope, dream, goals you have, they become much more possible when you peel away the fear that has been surrounding all of them. If you think this episode might help someone, please share it and like and subscribe for more ways to live a better life. We're all in this together, so sharing the information that we have with one another helps us all thrive and live better lives. If you're interested in diving deeper into self-reflection and healing, don't forget Being Worthy, a guide to self-love and compassion. Meetup does a monthly journaling, and that's a collaboration that I do with social refugees. So there's a journaling group every month. We're probably going to start a friends reading group where we read books about making friends and relationships, and then we're doing the 10-month Rewrite Your Life. Those things are all happening. I'll put the link to the meetup so you can join and keep an ear out for new things that are coming up with that. And if you want a more in-depth look on how to find resilience and hope during dark times, my book, Reasons to Live, offers helpful ideas and information on moving through the darkness we sometimes find ourselves in. So I encourage you to look that up and see if that might be helpful for you. We talk a lot about suicide in that book. However, so many of those practices are good for just learning about yourself and who you are as a person and how you can live the life that you want to live and how you can help others do the same. So thank you for being here, my dear, dear friends. Know that I love you and I support you. And you got this. We can do this together. We can let go of some little fears, and fear will no longer keep us here. So take good care, my friends.